bu defa onları yerle bir etmek için buradayım.
Her şey bitti. Çok geç kaldı bu savaşa. Beni orada The mythical beasts fall. Wildcats roar.
Alles stand in Flammen. Aber jetzt ist die Zeit für Rache.
Na pokrewna z tej drodze wiele trudności, jednak tym razem nic mnie nie powstrzyma. Quiere demostrar al resto que es voluntad brillar.
Karmine Corp have done it. Back to back EU Masters champions.
Il vous a manqué. Il est temps de reprendre ce qui nous appartient.
Hello and welcome to EMEA Masters 2023 Summer Quarterfinals, where two LFL teams, one TCL and one Prime League team, are fighting for only 2 spots available in our semi-finals. I'll be your host, Traveling, and I'm here with two lovely analysts, Doug and Yamato. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Yeah, glad to be here. Yeah.
So we had Yamato yesterday, but Doug, that we have you here for the first time this split in studio. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I mean, I'm glad I get to be here for this series as well. I mean, the fact that we've got like one of the most successful teams ever to EMEA Masters going up against the last year's champion, like it's such a sick series to get to come in with.
Yeah, and also, Yamato, we had some of the fastest series yesterday.
Quick work day.
4-3-0, quick wins. You want to run me a little bit through yesterday?
Borderline, I'm going to feel bad invoicing for that one, but it's like a quick 3-0 on both ends. You know, a Movistar after their kind of rough group stage when they were having a couple of early games, they found the confidence. They started off hard. Off of that first Nautilus hook that they just landed, it felt like everything is going to continue in their way. They snowballed, they picked these wonky compositions that were full Merc threads, but it was not an issue because, of course, Supa just had so much gold, and every single game that they played, he was super far ahead and really popped off.
Yeah, I think it's sick to see as well, like Alvaro getting to bring out picks like the Nico and that kind of stuff. Like, he's been a support player that I've been keeping my eyes on across the course of EMEA Masters, and we're starting to see him now kind of flex his muscles a little bit as well, and having that much control over the bottom side of the map for Movistar riders and being able to lean that into the control they had in the mid-game then was just so sick to see.
Now, of course, on the other hand side, for the quarterfinal, we had history being made. A Portuguese team making quarterfinals for the first time ever in EMEA Masters history. And PG Nuts with Matchgo beating them 3-0 to make another EMEA Masters history. PG Nuts locking in semifinals.
Oh, it's crazy to consider now that they just straight up went 9-0 so far, Matchgo. It's looking pretty clean, pretty crispy. I'm excited to see more of them, especially with them beating out K-Corp in such a convincing fashion. A team that has a clear identity in terms of how they want to play later on in the game. Need to give a shout out to GB as well. The Danish mid laner is very excited about him. I think he had a fantastic Tristana game, and it's going to be exciting to see them against Movistar Riders because it's just a juxtaposition in terms of what the teams are.
That's exactly what we're going to be seeing over on Thursday. That will be our first semi-final. But for today, we're going to have another look at the bracket. We have some pretty hype matchups. SK Prime versus Geo. If you guys are interested in this series, it will be played over on twitch.tv/ESLOL. But for us, today on this stream, we will have Istanbul Wildcats versus Karmine Corp. A mountain versus like, where do you even start? Like TCL powerhouse joining EMEA Masters, taking everyone by storm in spring versus the back-to-back EMEA Masters champions?
Yeah, it kind of feels like the old guard taking on the new blood, right?
Yeah.
In a certain way, right? Because you've got Karmine Corp, who 3 times champions now going up against last year's our champions as well. It feels like a huge amount of this is Istanbul Wildcats kind of coming in and going, hey, we're the new guys here. We want to stamp our authority on this tournament. Whereas you got Karmine Corp now coming in and going, no, this has been ours from the get-go. What are you doing here?
Oh, it's crazy as well, too. If you just isolate this year, you know, Karmine, they didn't even qualify in spring, and they had such a rough time, and now they've made the resurgence. And I feel like Istanbul Wildcats, with everything that we've seen so far, I could imagine that the community sees them as the favorite, especially because Karmine Corp had quite the rough group stage.
Yeah, especially bringing in people like Ferret back into the lineup as well. Like, this guy has been an absolute powerhouse for them in the jungle. We saw him go to Worlds. We saw him actually like step up massively in the regular season for them as well in the TCL, getting that MVP. It feels like there's a huge amount of this squad is ready to go toe-to-toe with Karmine Corp.
And I feel like what some people who haven't followed for the longest time might forget is that, of course, the TCL joined us for the very first year at EMEA Masters. They won everything so far. There was one tournament, they won that. They brought their superstar jungler, like you mentioned, who took them to Worlds back in 2022 back. So would we say that this iteration of Wildcats is more scary than the one we saw in spring?
Honestly, in my mind, I have to be honest, I didn't watch too much in spring. I prepared for today's matchup. I'm more of the type of guy that lives in the now. I'm more excited about the current matchup, so maybe you take this one. Rob. I don't know why I'm talking.
I definitely think they are a little bit stronger. I think Ferret has definitely leveled them up, but to a certain extent, the way he's able to play around Koft in the mid lane is making things a lot easier for them in those early stages. And I think as well, it's also kind of giving that commanding presence that I think they lack to a certain extent. Like Koft is doing a very good job of trying to, sorry, not Koft, the Ferret is doing a very good job of trying to track where the enemy jungler or what they're up to and trying to keep them within touching distance. Because Istanbul Wildcats had always been very strong when it came to that late game team fighting, and now Ferret's just adding that early game threat as well.
Now, of course, what's throwing the spice in this matchup is not that they're just facing K-Corp, another LFL team that's a huge powerhouse, is that the fact that every time they've been here, they've won. When they're not here, of course, but when they are here, it's nothing but the title. And they're coming in as the only 3P team. How do we see them coming up to this year's EMEA Masters? I know, Yamato, you have been reviewing a lot of their games.
Yes. No, I think it's just K-Corp now, the standard they've set for themselves in terms of what their history is. They come to EMEA Masters, they come to also win it. I think it generally, you know, you see them being so aggressive in terms of the changes that they make in any off-season or in any season that is going wrong for them. Because spring went terrible. Also last year in summer as well, they were very aggressive in the changes that they made. K-Corp, their fans, the colors, the blue wall, it represents winning. And they come into this tournament wanting a lot more than just a 4-3 in the group stage. And they've been down before. Usually when it comes to those BO5s, it doesn't matter because in the long run, they manage to make it work. They have a history of winning, and I imagine that they have the intention of keeping going with tradition.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot that a lot of these players kind of find their way back to Karmine Corp, right? Obviously, you get them to go up to the LEC, but when it comes back to, hey, we want to play in the LFL, it's coming back to Karmine Corp, right? Saken, obviously, we saw him step up, but he's a 3-time champion here in the EMEA Masters. We've seen Synkrov come up to BDS, and then he comes back to the LFL, to his home, what it feels like in Karmine Corp. And I think it says a lot about the organization that they're keeping this incredible roster of talent flowing through and coming back, and now once more showing up at the EMEA Masters stage.
And also for Wildcats, right? They came into a tournament that was dominated by Casey for so long, right? And they won over in spring when Casey was not here. So a lot of people said, hey, maybe they didn't have the chance to prove themselves versus the champions that hold the most titles. But I'm looking at this roster behind me and I'm like, the core is there. Saken, Synkrov, Targamas. This guy's lifted it back in 2021 where the whole fan base came into the EMEA Masters, where the whole ruckus began around the blue wall. So how do we see their strength currently with this roster?
I think just the craziest thing is just the rookie that came in is just Kalist. I feel like this is the guy that is the main focus. You know, it's like they have these players all around them that have experience. All of them have played matches in the LEC. And Kalist, just as a rookie, I think he's such an exciting player because on both sides, you know, Kalist and Paros, these are two players that I've heard many rumors about, that these are two players that LEC teams are actually scouting and might look for in the future.
And when we put the two teams together, gentlemen, Wildcats versus KC, strength versus strength, we saw at Wildcats that's kind of undefeated. Again, they haven't necessarily been pushed to their core over in groups coming into quarterfinals, but KC had to play a very important tiebreaker versus the NOC to even squeeze through these quarterfinals, and now they're playing against them. So how do we match up?
I think it's kind of a tale of two very different sides of the coin, right? Because when you look at Karmine Corp, I kind of think of this team as very, very aggressive, right? They want to try and play through that strong mid jungle in the early stages, set themselves up for success, especially around Kalist in that bot lane, and then try and leverage that coming into the later portion of the game. And obviously, Cabalshard's a beast in the top lane. He's going to be fantastic. But then when you look across at the opposite side for DenizBank Wildcats, a huge amount of it is more so trying to be like, hey, can we try and mitigate the damage in the early stages and then play for that later damage where it comes towards things like trying to set Bao up for team fights, and that's where they try to come alive. And even when you look at the stats on your screen, you can kind of see that tail as well, right? Karmine Corp more focused on that bottom side of the map, looking for those drakes in the early stages and playing off that bot lane aggression, whereas when you look across the opposite side for DenizBank, it's about, hey, let's try and get as much of that gold and try and mitigate damage in the early stages by playing for Rift Heralds, and then we can come alive at the later portions.
It's interesting how everything has panned out, because in the group stages, I felt like the Wildcats had games where they were actually in losing positions, but like theoretically, when they were behind against the Camille, there was also that 40-minute banger that they had that went super, super far and wide, and that game could have been a game that just went back and forth. They seem to carry a sense of discipline as the game progresses that some of the other teams don't have. And on the flip side, as you mentioned, Rob, K-Corp, they had a leading position against Machko in that first initial matchup when they had the Tryndamere and people complained about draft. But they were in a winning position. They didn't connect as well as they should have, and they got punished hard by Machko. So I think this is going to be a question of Karmine Corp. Can they leverage an advantage that they get from the early game into a win against a very stable late-game team that is Wildcats?
And on the opposite side, it feels like it's kind of been Karmine Corp who had these controls and then end up tossing them, right? And I think that's kind of been, for me, looking at Karmine Corp to say, hey, look, can you guys set yourselves up better for these objectives? Like, make sure that you're getting the priority in lanes that you need and not kind of giving wiggle room for DenizBank Wildcats to come back into it. Because if you do, this is a team that'll happily jump on that.
And of course, to take all these early game objectives that you mentioned, to set up for them to get that early game aggression going, I feel like supports have been so instrumental for every team, this particular EMEA Masters, and Targamas is no stranger to the entire EMEA Masters tournament and K-Corp itself. I feel like their pairing back then in 2021 together with Syncrof was one of the strongest suits for the organization, but now being up against Paros, who's a very Targamas-esque kind of support, likes to roam, likes the aggression. How do you think they pair up against each other?
Yeah, I think definitely looking at Targamas and Syncrof, this is the powerhouse of the Karmine Corp early game. A huge amount of this is, hey, maybe we'll get ag-ganked down to the bot side, but keep your eyes on Targamas, because it's as soon as he's unlocked, it's about trying to link up with Syncrof, trying to move in towards Seiken in the mid lane, and making sure that you can have that full control from bot to the mid lane, so you can play for dragons. Like, you even see clips there where they're playing up towards Cabo Shard, but it is just this threat across the map, and it's so difficult to try and keep control of, because, I mean, Targamas has been very, very good at finding these timings to play off of those moments.
Paros is such an interesting player on the flip side. I think that in terms of game sense, knowing this is his second year, I feel like this year definitely put him on the radar with the EMEA Masters win and coming into this tournament as one of the favorites too. I think Paros has shown fantastic game sense, really strong idea for when to engage, when to pressure, decent lane phase as well. I think these are the type of characteristics that LEC teams look out for when they're looking for the next potential support. So it's exciting to see, these players, in the end, this is a tournament in itself. It has a lot of prestige to it, but the main key goal for a lot of these players is to elevate themselves to the epitome of European League of Legends.
I remember over in spring in the finals, the Blitzcrank was a huge contention point when it came to Paros. He created havoc around the map. Now, of course, talking about the Blitzcrank, I want your guys' opinion on what do you think would be some, not necessarily priority picks, but some very important key picks that could potentially bring the victory over to its team.
I think the key thing that we've seen so far with this tournament is just the Maokai, the Rel, the Poppy. These are the prior junglers that for sure are going to be contested today with Ferret and Synchro playing. I think Zeri has also been a really, really big one. In the beginning, when Zeri started to show up in the meta globally, it didn't look super, super interesting, but now I feel like teams have really figured out how to leverage the strength that Zeri has in lane phase to then transition into later parts in the game. And then, for me, the most interesting side is I hope Rumble gets picked, but the tricky thing about Rumble is that Jace Tristana gets banned so often. Maybe we're going to see like a Yon Rumble kind of combo. I think this is where you need to explore, because Rumble's broken in my mind.
And I think that's kind of looking at the mid lane champion pool is super interesting, because when you actually look at Kofta versus Seiken, it's quite similar. Like, you're getting a lot of the Jaces, the Tristanas, the Azir is another big one as well. I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of focus on, okay, can we either get rid of these AD champions, or are we enabling things like the Maokai and the Sejuani, or even an Ivern that can maybe enable these guys to a certain extent as well. So I'm really curious to see how that mid-jungle pool gets pinched coming into draft.
And now, the important question right here is, of course, TCL is one of the biggest regions that we have over at EMEA Masters. They just joined us this year. And also, we talked a little bit, Yamada, yesterday about the LFL and how a lot of big names end up in these teams, but they don't necessarily have the structure. Do you actually think that K-Corp has what it takes to take down Wildcats?
I believe so. I believe so today. With the research I've done, I feel like K-Corp When it comes to the BO5s, I remember their matches against BKR. I think they recognize that they're very strong early and were a little bit greedier in their approach in terms of draft. And I think today, if they're greedier and pick a heavier scaling compositions, I think they can have the edge today.
Yeah, I think greed is a great word for it, because even when I looked at them playing against Matchco, right, they'd have these early leads and they'd kind of just get greedy or like not play for lane priority so then they can move down towards Dragon, or they wouldn't contest mid-wave and then try and go for Rift Herald, get surrounded and die. Like, I think there's a lot of little mistakes that they're making because of this greediness, where I think if they can try and shut that down, they'll be a lot better now.
And of course, we're going to be covering picks and bans right here. They've already started. Karmine Corp versus Wildcats. Karmine Corp on blue side, Wildcats on the red. And a lot of the champions you guys have laid out for us, Tristana, Poppy, Azir, LeBlanc, all gone.
Interesting. We've seen so many bans against Saken in this tournament. Like, there's this meme going on. I think 18 out of 20 bans at some point were targeted towards Saken, and they keep dropping him lower and lower. We'll see if he's given some priority. Maybe with the Maokai first pick, went then into a Jace, you know, something like this. Zeri, Maokai, Jace should be the priors here.
Ooh. Yeah, they're going to take the Maokai here, which is, I thought they might try and just immediately go for the chase, because you know Kofta is a big fan of it. So kind of leaving that open for him here. Then you get the Rumble as well, which is another one that you highlighted. So this does open up like a Rumble Jace angle, which they're immediately going to try and select, which I imagine Karmine Corp are going to try and respond with something like the Xayah. Gives themselves that little bit of self-peel coming through with the Xayah for those Rumble ultimates, but you're playing a pretty short-range composition then into one that has a ton of poke with just those two champions alone.
Yeah, the big test here is if they're going to go in the direction of like maybe playing Yone into Jace and then trying to match in that direction. You know, the usual answers into Rumble so far has been either tanks or just a classic Renekton and hope that you can find a gank. But this Rumble Jace rotation looks so nasty and strong. They're going for the scaling, the Ornn.
Oh, I actually thought we'd see something like a Renekton, to be honest, coming in for Cabo in that top side more. Like, that has been his most played. He's got, I think it's like an 80% win rate or something ridiculous on it. So I'm surprised to see that high priority on the Ornn already. I think Xayah, probably your best bet coming into this, unless you're like super high priority on a Nautilus or the Zeri or even an Alistair or something along those lines. But I think, Eddie Carey needs to be picked here, because you're just going to leave yourself pinched in the next rotation.
I think probably, maybe we'll see just the Kai'Sa follow up here on 3, or there's not a lot of junglers open in the picture too, considering Sejuani, Rel and Poppy is out, but there's the Kai'Sa to match. So already red side, very, very poke heavy, but KC, I feel like with the Ornn lock-in, it kind of reminds me of the first initial series they played against BKR, because they also played quite AP heavy compositions, but it just didn't matter because the games went long and far and wide, and then they just leveraged the fact that they were better around early Drakes to then scale into those moments.
Yeah, I'm curious for the Istanbul Wildcats if you end up seeing something like a Trundle in the jungle here. I think you got two big tanky members, but also just the fact that you end up with this pillar that just sets people up super well. 2 poke, can play very interruptive, and could work out super well for you. I think Karmine Corp though, with a lot of the tanks that they already have set up, have phenomenal engage. So I really think you need something that's just going to provide some sort of disengage for your team, because at the moment they've got so much, but there's the Trundle ban.
It's a good ban. I'm trying to think what else. You know, we've seen a Mumu jungle at this tournament, you know, with Pride Soccer. Nocturne here looks kind of rough into what they're showing. I wonder as well here with the Zeri lock-in, I wonder if they're going to invite a potential Rakan on 4 and they just play like the range support. I feel like the Lulu, put all your eggs in the Kalist basket. I feel like this is such a good recipe for success. I wonder in terms of mid lane as well, 5 mid lane bans. Like here, maybe we're going to see like a classic Saken Victor, and then just a full scaling composition. It seems like a good recipe for success in a BO5 to start off kind of lean and loose.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great matchup into the Jace, but I mean, Saken also a very big Ryze player. Did get some buffs coming into the patch, and I think if you want something that's just to help you close the distance, Ryze could be really, really good in that situation, but may not be the best with what's on the table at the moment as well. But yeah, I'm really curious to see now what Saken is going to take. I still think Alistair, Nautilus, Istanbul Wildcats definitely want something that's going to play for that engage, and Alistair seems to be the one here.
Okay, so now I guess the option is either you commit harder on the engage route. You also have the option to just slam Lulu, play that with Zeri, and then just go the full scaling route too. But that's kind of hard to play Lulu into Rumble and the poke. 2 schools of thoughts. Are they going to commit heavy into the engage route, or will they go even harder on the scaling route? Okay, Nico Maokai is kind of weak though.
I was going to say Nico Maokai
Okay,
is
can
kind
go
of weak.
support. We started yesterday.
But even then, like, Istanbul Wildcats aren't really playing into you, right?
Yes, yes.
So it seems like a bit of an awkward one for the Nico to try and play into here, but it does kind of look more like a, hey, we've just been pinched really badly here, and what the hell do we try and go for? I do agree with you, though, Yamato. I think something that opens up, like, even just a Shirelli's Reverie. Okay, never mind. I was going to say the bot lane with a Lulu would be super good to just help you close that distance, but looks like they're just going to go for the Nautilus and say, hey, look, we just want even more engage on top of what we have.
Yep. I think the moment they lock in the Nico, the Nocta is kind of strange. I feel like the play pattern is so apparent here from what blue side wants to do, and they want to commit into you, while red side just wants to play time and poke with Jason Kai's and take it easy. But it seems the moment the Nico got linked together with the Nautilus, they just want to make sure that they can hard force on this Jace on all times.
Yeah, I feel like Ferret's just distraction in this one. It's like, hey, look at me! Just like ignore the rest of my team, please, for the love of God.
Just a glorified light switch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm curious. I think that's all it is. It's like, hey, look, I'm going to turn off the lights, jump on your back line, and as you were trying to engage onto my long-range poke, but you can't really go for it. So I have a feeling Ferret's going to be sacrificing himself a little bit in this one for the good of the cause. But how good is that cause is now going to be the real question.
Either that or they're just turning the lights off every time that Casey tries to engage to try and break them apart, right? If you can't see, you can't follow up your teammates. One side, heavy poke, the other side, very heavy front to back. Thank you very much, guys. We're going to be throwing it to our casters to take us through game one of Casey versus Istanbul Wildcats. Namera, initialize, take it away.
With pleasure, Georgia. It is great to be here, joined by my brother, and I think we kind of echo a lot of the sentiments there from the desk. Ferret's going to have an interesting time on the Nocturne, I think it's fair to say. He's got a couple ways to play it, but if he's going in the backline, it's going to be rough.
If he goes into that composition, it's going to be absolutely hellish. Luckily, there's an Alistair to do a bit of that tanking for them. I really think Paris on one of these tanky engaged supports is so important for this composition because no one else can take damage on that 5-man unit of the Wildcats. KC, if they get to the 5v5s, it feels like they have the beef to last out.
They do. The problem is they are also into a huge artillery backline that the DenizBank Wildcats got, because they've got the Kai'Sa and the Jace and the Rumble who can hit you from 2 screens away. And that could be something that if they are allowed to just sit there and free farm and then free fire, it gets very tricky.
And it does. So we have ourselves 2 very different compositions for 2 very different teams in the history of EMEA Masters coming into game 1 of this quarterfinals. Before this tournament began, you could have pinned these 2 teams as a finals matchup, given the hype around them, given the regions that they're coming from as well. The all-time most successful EMEA Masters team in Karmine Corp versus the recent champions of the Wildcats with the new region added into the ERL circuit of the TCL.
And more than that as well, it is the LFL first. It's the first time since Karmine Corp qualified to the LFL back in 2021 that they have been the first seed from the LFL. A little while. They haven't won since that 2021 spring.
It's weird to think because they've won this tournament from play-ins before.
Oh yeah, I know, exactly. Their turnip at International has been remarkable. The turnip at this tournament has been remarkable, but they often played a little bit of that second fiddle to the likes of LDLC in recent years. So chance to flex their muscles here.
Yeah. So what's going to be really important with this is both of these teams, it has felt they've had a real emphasis on laning. I think particularly the new AD carry for Karmine Corp coming into this year, Kalist, just turned 17 yesterday, has had such good early stats, and that's helped Karmine Corp bridge into these early leads, which they've managed to run away with some games with.
It's a little hook at the level 1, not too much more to be found, and there you go. See those numbers. Worth noting is all that gold difference in particular is slightly inflated by one game where he was up like 6k. Even without that game from groups, he's still over 1,000 gold ahead at 14 on average across groups.
It does have shades of what Karmine Corp used to do even in their Matty era and then the Reckless era just after that as well, when they went on all those titles, where they just walk away at 15 minutes with 30 CS leads in every single lane. So a good follow-up to the legacy for this team.
Indeed, and what a player, to be honest, for doing it as well. I think you heard it from Yamato that this is the kind of player people might well be scouting for LEC at some point in the near future, as Syncroft and Paris will spot each other out. Syncroft going in for this invade, but you will see Ferrets just on Wolves. You can come over and start considering fighting this.
Maybe. Really don't like facing Lethal Temple Nocturne, though. If you do end up... There it goes. This is the thing, right? Nocturne is very strong as an individual jungler. You have the Jace, which can answer very quickly, too. I think Syncroft is lucky to have a Blast Cone and a pushing bot lane. So that pushing bot lane and the winning early lane of Kalist, which he so often has, coming in to help the jungle matchup for Karmine Corp.
It's doing pretty well here as Kofta. It's one more CS, but now has to try and find his way out of slight dodge. Of course, at level 3 and a Swift transform back to his cannon form, should be able to run away safely enough.
He's just being so frustrating, isn't he? He's flashing in, more than frustrating. He's looking for the red buff kill.
That's a pretty big deal. We'll try and knock him away now with the E, and we'll do so. That's the flash from Syncroft, and Kofta will be forced into an early back, but does survive.
So, Syncroft getting involved early. Ferret can duel out well, but can't impact lanes well at this point. So Syncroft using that level 3 will CC involved to get a little bit done at that point. However, because Syncroft has wasted a little bit of time going in towards that mid lane and trying to chase Kofta back to base, does mean that there's openings elsewhere on the map.
Oh, headbutt pulverize. There's a flash for flash, and first blood just comes down. Kallista's dead. The rookie superstar falls in the opening moments of the game.
Oh, and that Barbon steams Kalist down on that bot side. It's a quick and easy kill. The Alistar has been so important in the current meta. You see it in so many regions being prioritized, and it's so good in the laning phase right now as well, if you give that opening. So often in the past, you're used to Alistar getting poked out, not able to get those big moments, but gets the full combo onto 2 people, gets the stun afterwards, level 3 from the both of them, slaughters the Zeri.
You heard it on the desk before, and they were highlighting both of these support players and how critical they can be to their teams. Paris there sees a beautiful angle. Getting first blood without any jungle attention feels really, really nice.
So, that is early lead against where one of these big disparities often comes from the LFL first seed. Plus, this very young AD carry gonna have to play from behind at least the first stage of this game.
It is, and well played, I think, to be said at that point, especially considering there was that early shove that looked a bit scary at moments there. We did see Syncroft getting the opportunity to go for that early invade, but has ended up now with that slight deficit in that bot side, which of course is not the end of the world, but it's certainly not the best start that you want to see from Karmine Corp, who had, honestly, a pretty rough start to the tournament in general. 3-3 in groups, not what you're hoping for if you're a Karmine Corp fan.
For sure. It did feel like they were very good at playing through lane with the likes of Kalista getting those leads, as we were saying, but Seiken and Capuchon having their own team fight impact later into the game. Sometimes they had some issues with starting their engagements. They get these laning leads and then they kind of throw everything on an engage where Syncroft and Targamas couldn't quite land that CC. So they're going to have to be very careful about how they engage into one of our teams, which is currently undefeated at the tournament and had a much more clean group stage in the Wildcats on the other side. If you start messing up your engages, this is not a team that will let you get away with that for free.
And again, it's worth pointing out that, of course, the Wildcats weren't entirely flawless in terms of how the games played out. There was that one game against GTZ where things got a little bit dicey. They were down to some Nexus turrets, but still came out with the win in the end. Right now,
First Dragon started up by Karmine Corp. So Ferret's making his way down here. Doesn't have level 6, of course. And I think with Kofta still pushing him away, this is going to be a non-contest from the side of the Wildcats. Now is not their time. Karmine Corp taking this one for free. And I think Syncroft has been using this Maokai very well to make sure that he's getting some value for his team before that knockdown becomes an issue. We will have to see what kind of issues that will bring. We said in the 5v5s, the knockdown is not going to be a particular threat, but he could potentially snowball one of these lanes.
Absolutely can do. Kalist now might be a threat again. The Ignite comes down, has to start backing away. Stun now on a Targamas who's being turned around on, but the root does come on through. A staggering blow, but it is just a trade in favor of Wildcats, who do end up burning the Ignite there.
Level 6 from Seiken. Is he going to go for an engage? He is.
About it. Has to flash on out. The Pop Blossom does so. And now Seiken a little bit far up. Misses the Tangle Burn. Will leave Kofta to get out. Sorry, Ferret to get out safely there, as everyone's over here. Some flashes being blown, although it's only the Hex version of it.
It is at that point. So, some minute sparks, but nothing really catching flame just so far. Again, having those ultimates coming online for these mid-jungle too, well, particularly the junglers means Knowledge Chaser really has much to say on that front. Forsaken having his first one blown, that's a little bit awkward. Removing the flash from the knockdown, interested to see if that plays around a potential Herald fight though. That's typically when your first R buttons of the game get pushed across the map rather than just your solo laners. Interested now with Ferret without flash can make an impactful play.
One of the things that did hurt, of course, for Kofta going back so early is he can get the best reset with that teleport. And you can see with the Sork Pen boots versus the Null Magic Mantle, he's definitely hitting a little bit hard right now, Seiken in the mid lane. As big headbutt pulve again, but it's an angry B in response. Maybe the turnaround could be pretty good as Bao. Not enjoying that, but there is Triumphant Roar heal that does keep Bao relatively topped up.
And there's good hook-ons about to drag him into the play. Paris, though, has really been running over this laning phase. If Alistar wins lane, you have to feel a little bit scared. If Alistar wins lane, he gets to walk around the map, he gets to get unlocked and have team fight impact.
Speaking of getting scared, you best start getting a bit paranoid as Ferret just hit level 6, of course, so is Syncroft, but we know how important those level 6s are on the junglers, and the Herald being started up by Wildcats. time to see whether Syncroft thinks to contest.
Syncroft has his ult, and one of the great things about Ornn is that he doesn't need to push top lane to impact a Herald fight. He can just push his ult and then roam down anyway. Interested to see what Kabashot's doing with his waves. Clearing it out right now. He could commit an ult to the play. Paris has flash. Syncroft might push it a bit far here.
How far are they thinking of going there? Comes the Ornn Horde, Paranoia pop from the other side, Destroy does get on in. I have no idea where that Herald went. It did in the end go over to Ferret. Now the fight commences. Tarnus has to flash on out. Root onto Ferret, who's desperately, no, not quite dead though. Look at Kabashot, gets a knock-up, and that'll be a kill onto the Ornn. But look at the back end as Saken gets a pop loss, and there's not that many Paris. As Paris gets that two-man headbutt pole. The fight still continues. Koff to corner the back of the pit, nowhere to go. In the end, Karmine Corp come up with more members and come up with more kills.
It's exactly what we said. Now Balcord out towards the end of it. Has ult.
Ooh, gets on out. Nice ult into the flash. Kalist misses the auto there. Now gets to back on out. And it ends up in the end actually being a 2 for 2 in the kills.
Wow,
as Bao outplays the end of it.
That was a better flash than the movie, I'll say that one for sure. Walks away 2-0-1 and I'm gonna leave that one there. Anyway, so this is what we were saying, right? Herald fight is about whose R buttons are better at this point. Someone like Ornn doesn't have to be there at the immediate start of the fight. Kabashot doesn't have to be in river. Throws his ult over the wall, flashes to make it even more stylish. And you can see that because of that flash being down from Ferret, he can't use his R key to really do the most in this fight. He gets soloed out, and that's largely a product of that flash being used earlier. You can see Karmine Corp, they do walk away with the fight. They don't walk away with the Herald though, so we have to now see the Wildcats, after kind of just losing out marginally on this fight, what they can do with that golden pocket.
And then Bao at the end of this finds a beautiful outplay. Kill, flash away, and Kalista just can't quite chase it down.
Now, what does this mean for the rest of the map? You can see still lead in the bot lane for the Wildcats AD carry. However, Saken, the inimitable playmaker of Karmine Corp, is ahead 2-0-1 on this Nico. I know that in the draft, the desk was saying, okay, well, what's going to happen when this Nico feels a little bit off theme from kind of the range advantage of trying to play around the huge Maokai and Ornn ults. But I think the Nico, with this amount of gold, can use the other engage from the Nautilus, from the Ornn, from the Maokai, to kind of slip in unseen, because they're Wildcats should be worried about the other forms of engage. They might lose the Nico, who has significant gold in their hands.
It is, and they've been doing well into Kofta as well, who has been one of these players that's put up a lot of damn work for the side of the Wildcats. Has been all over the place in terms of his kill participation, in terms of his damage numbers, has been a huge part of a lot of the fights, a lot of the success the team has, and I believe his Jace is still undefeated as well, at least at EMEA Masters. You can see there in the numbers, the KDA, the kill position, the damage per minute,
almost like,
he is all over the place.
Almost like the producers can hear us.
I know,
they put this
really
stuff up at the best times, and when Kofta gets to have a clean game on something like the Jace, he always gets involved. He is undefeated at the Jace at this tournament. Despite Jace as a pick, having some odd games, not having the best record across the tournament, Kofta is so good at this. And even in their title run, this was his primary champion he found that success on. And see how he's putting up those numbers.
Fantastic player of the champion, a fantastic player so far this tournament, even if Saken has perhaps got the better of him slightly on in this early game in terms of the kills and stuff, but Dragon Fight begins, overcomes absolutely everybody. Horn comes down, looking to get the ult, but that's the Paranoia in response. The Equalizer is brutal, and they'll be forced to back away with the Dragon secured by Wildcats. I don't think we're going to see any more violence after that, though.
I love this. So another thing that the desk said as well is that, isn't Ferret just going to be, a glorified light switch? That was pretty nice, because the thing is, if you're walking through a forest and you can't see the trees, you're not going to walk particularly fast. So the carpet comes down with the Equalizer, Ferret turns off the lights, and Karmine Corp, only you can start forest fires destroying. Pretty sure that's how that one goes. They don't exactly have the same form of like national parks here.
Oh boy.
But either way, Ferret kind of buying time for that dragon to go over means that Karmine Corp do not get themselves second dragon of the game. We have ourselves an Ocean Rift, which I think with so many tanks on the side of Karmine Corp would have been so nice for them to link up to, but they're not going to get themselves the earliest possible soul.
No, they are not. Reminder, Herald is in the inventory of Ferret. 3 plates have already gone down thanks to Destroy shoving in nice and early. It'll get dropped here, will the Herald, to try and get Destroy even more gold into his inventory as Kabashot tries to trade back at least a little bit, but loses significant portions of his health bar for it. Syncroft and teleports beginning though. They're going to try and punish this one. Destroyer has flash, may be forced to pop it. Saken trying to get in range. There's the slow on the smite. Surely he's out from now. Flash for flash. And the deny on that turret take.
While this is happening as well, when you just look at the minimap, Karmine Corp, they make this play when bot side of the map is unable to be cross-mapped on because their bot lane had been on a reset, so it wasn't like they could kind of force a play towards that. Karmine Corp, bit of a free play. Yes, they end up losing the teleport rather from Saken, but it was a free play. I like the map state they had leading up to that.
Indeed it was, and that is Great news in terms of managing to deny the turret take at least for now, but of course losing that teleport might be punishable later, as actually put Polv onto Kalist doesn't lead to too much because of course he can just dash over a wall.
Oh yes, that's the Zeri thing. Zeri champion.
She's done that for a little while now. It's nothing especially new.
She's done that a lot in this tournament too. It does kind of feel like when you
Trauma.
give them to the hands of someone like Kalist, they're just infinitely safe. Destroy has no flash this time. Does have ult in 5 seconds. Kofta can teleport if he wants to.
Whether it'll be enough to save him. He gets rooted, trying to buy some time. 1 second on the ult, looks to try and throw it down. He's just going to hold on to it.
Okay, but look bot lane. Look bot lane right now. Just wanted to see if anything was happening there. Destroy, he's pretty much dead. He knows he's dead. There could have been a teleport coming in to respond, but Wildcats didn't want to pull themselves in at the CV3. There was a chance for a bot lane dive. Wildcats called that off for jungle camp steals and some plates on both bot and mid turrets. I think they still get something in regards to this too, but luckily at least Karmine Corp to get Destroy out of lane before he can kill that turret.
And it's before the plates fall as well that have now gone down, so that denies that additional gold going over. It does, as you said, not come entirely for free. Now the dive afterwards might be punishable as Targamas gets knocked up. We'll try and get some damage back. Paranoia comes down. Paris just about escapes the towers. Raya, now Kofta's down bot lane, trying to get Kalist, does so. 2 for 1, single call. Absolutely mild. Paris gets a knocked up. It is desperately low. They'd love to get this kill onto the Malcolm, but I just don't think they can get it. Wait, they do anyway. Call of the Force Call gets onto 2, but I don't know whether Cabashot can quite get in range. Does so. Throws out the Bellows Breath and will get one more. A 3 for 2 in the bot side as Cabochard walks his way down there to ensure it's a bit of an uneven trade.
What is going on? Big man Cabochard comes down, cleans up something, at least costs him a flash and an ultimate, but very happy to at least take someone off the board. Both these teams have come into today ready to scrap. One of the big things which stuck out in my mind in terms of their group stage performances against particularly Karmine Corp when they were facing teams like Matchco and even Wildcats facing GTZ. It felt like both of these teams were happy to play through lane, but caught a little bit flat-footed when people got very, very aggressive onto them and started roaming across the map. You can see in this series right now, though, you can see that they're still trying to make all these big plays.
Indeed, it's Destroy now being jumped on again. They just keep teleporting top. This Rumble is absolutely the prime target, and Kalist gets that one.
Dude, that's going to open up second to Herald for free. Destroy had no ult to clear the wave, overstayed, and sadly
teleported on the last time.
They are really getting a lot of value out of that one. We're going to go back towards the cross map of what happened in this bot side. Now, but this is kind of after the top lane play had just kind of materialized for the side of Karmine Corp. Leaves open a cross map to come through. Paris tanks the turret up with that Alistar ultimate. Means they get another couple of tower shots to play around. Ferret doesn't even take up the aggro in his own right, but doesn't really respect the right click coming in from the Zeri, so gets killed after the flash anyway beyond that point. Things just get a mess after this point. There's an extra tower shot taken. Cabochard turns up from somewhere, flashes in for the final kill.
While in the picture-in-picture, you can see, of course, they do finally get one back there, but there's a Herald summoned in mid lane, and there was a turret secured by Jace elsewhere. So in the end, it's still Wildcats up 2 turrets to none. Even if Karmine Corp have been punishing some of those pushes in those lanes, it's still Wildcats with a structure advantage right now.
And as it stands, they get themselves into position for this dragon spawning in the next 10 seconds. You'd love to get some mid lane priority with a Shiv on Zeri. That becomes effortless, so they're going to keep pushing that out. But you are against a bit of a range advantage. You have the Kai'Sa, who's about to get that W involved. Sadly, not at that point just yet, but you also have the Jace heading towards those 2 items. Karmine Corp, they don't want this to go through to the 2nd and 3rd round of cooldowns, otherwise they're going to be eating a lot of poke.
That's exactly it. Root right now onto Destroy. Dragon started. Seiken trying to ward off that ever-present Rumble. Shock Blast begins to land, but not too much value. There comes the Malphite, but it's just trying to buy some space. Now come the other ults of the Forge God and the Paranoia down at once. Into the backline they go. Kalist pops out that lightning crash. Still trying to get Cabochard with a monster 2-man knock-up into the dance charge. Keeps Ferret up and low. Kofta is traded out. Kalist gets that one. And Karmine Corp will claim their second Drake and a kill on top.
It's cool, calm and collected from Karmine Corp. They don't get the biggest value out of their big ultimates, but they never leave themselves open for huge damage to come through from the Wildcats. The items aren't there yet from Kofta and Bao. I guess they're the savory food combo, Kofta and Bao. I hadn't thought about that one before, but they don't have their 2 items, but they have the W upgrade and stuff like that. And what this means is that the front line from Karmine Corp feels so much safer to throw out those ultimates and just stand at the right range to invite Wildcats into them. You see, the first ultimate to come out, it's hitting Paris, who's got his ult on. It's not hitting someone like Bao, but Bao's never in position to do good damage, and Destroy is zoned out on the side.
Picture-in-picture, Destroy once again caught out over shoving in the side lane. I'm not sure the teleports are involved this time, but he does fall again. I believe it was Seiken that picked up that kill either way. An additional little bit of gold into the pockets of Karmine Corp, and the gold beginning to edge back towards even still 1,000 or so in the favor of the Wildcats, but the LFL's #1 seed has begun to claim a few more of those objectives, a few more of those kills in recent minutes.
And I think what's good signs for them, maybe something a little bit concerning for the Wildcats, is this Nocturne pick. We said, hey, they could be a threat if used in the right situation. That didn't look like the right situation to them. That was Ferret flying down the middle of the fight again and getting picked off, at least not able to get the value which he wanted to at that point. So Wildcats, they're going to have to rack their brains as regards to exactly what Ferret can do. Even if he builds up something like a Guardian Angel, that's not exactly the best utility for a lot of these team fights.
It's worth keeping our eyes on. Hasn't gone towards it quite yet. Second item is beginning to come on through now, as Bao has got that this time around. That was that discrepancy you talked about in that last fight. There wasn't those items quite yet complete. Synchro comes up onto the red buff, but it's a long way behind enemy lines. Think he'll be able to recall. Wait, he's still just there. He's not recalled yet.
Wildcats lack critical information.
They're teleporting on this as well. Destroy's about to be jumped on. There's the paranoia. They know where this rumble is. They're trying to get on over. The equalizer afterwards, though, it's brutal. It's right at the checkpoint. I wonder whether Synchro has cooked a little bit too much, and this is looking a little overdone. They'll get one, but how about the turnaround to Paris? But he's got his ultimate running. He's so damn tanky. Now goes back in and does die a 1-for-1 right now, but the Dread Line afterwards means the Karmine Corp can keep on going. This slow cooking was apparently just enough spice in us to get themselves the additional kill.
It was a bit of an unorthodox way to start a fight, but it does work out in the LFL champions' favor. Destroy, buddy. No, please don't walk up to this. He's overheated, though.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of damage on the Kalist. Not quite.
I mean, that's a lot of items on that Zeri. You can't take that one for free, and it feels like Wildcats, they were vastly unprepared for Karmine Corp's power spike at this point in the game.
They keep on going. Cabashon knocked out of his searing charge. That'll prevent the knock-up onto Kofta. The mid lane turret does fall, but Kalist will claim the top lane tier 1.
How good is this AD carry, though, from Karmine Corp? He is just putting out so much damage in the last fight, and then the pick on to destroy. See how much power he has on the Zeri at that 1.5 item mark. Bao, he did hit his items for this fight. Kofta also getting towards that too, but the fights are happening too fast. Look how many skills they get out. You get, what, one Kaiser W, which sadly misses at that point. Kofta gets a shock blast out, but they're not matching this Zeri when they start to pop ult. Yes, Zeri is a good scaling champion, but compared to the Kaiser, which needs to really hit multiple Ws when they are this AP build, it's so much more value at this point in time, particularly when your front line is also stronger. It means you can just dash forward with impunity.
It is, and then Kalist gets a beautiful little 1v1 at the end of that one as well. It's just a little overestimation there by Destroy, who had a great laning phase and is kind of afterwards being caught out multiple times as Karmine Corp have zeroed in on him time and time again.
Something what we were kind of aware of in spring as well, even on their championship run. Sometimes Destroy would just have a bit of a happy game. Now, he did get so much more value, and it did feel like even in those games, he would turn it around at some point. Karmine Corp would love to stop that from happening. Maybe Ferret can enable him a little bit more the next time a side lane is looked at. Ferret's never really been present in those, and Wildcats, they still have themselves a momentary gold advantage. It's a minute until the next dragon, and they do have themselves some power spikes for this one. They need the fight to go slower than it has been before this, though, because Karmine Corp, they've just been walking forwards, using their tanks, using their engage, and stopping the second and third cooldowns coming out of the poke champions.
Still waiting on that second item for Jason. Of course, the stopwatch was burned for Amsaken, and there is no Zhonya's quite yet, so some important item completion's not quite there yet, but the moment I speak about it, thank you very much, Nymera. Kofta does complete the transformed Muramana, so that Jace will be online for this dragon in 20 seconds, which would be sole point for Karmine Corp if they can get it.
I think you'll find this poke champion is fully operational. Kofta about. They're waiting just around the bend here to see if they can get enough damage off of these important carries of Karmine Corp. Even if they can take down one of the frontline members low enough, means that Karmine Corp's their phalanx, maybe that falls apart. But they're second into the river yet again because of that Shiv on the Zeri. It makes it very hard to win this mid lane push. And Karmine Corp, they're doing exactly what they need to. They need to sit here, threaten and engage, and stop Wildcats being able to sit pretty and poke.
One thing that is a little different, though, is Wildcats might say, fine, we'll give up this dragon, come fight us at Baron instead. They're certainly threatening it. Saken and Kalist are the ones who will be taking up this dragon. Wildcats decide against that Baron bait. They're just going to give this one up. Don't want to force into the river like they did the last time. And Right back to the Baron they go.
They are so apprehensive about this. Seiken has teleport. Which wards has he got to choose from? There's one just to the left, and Seiken without flash should still be able to go towards it. Here comes the engage.
Through, and it prevents the secondary activation, but now Paris is in very deep. Will try and turn this one best they can as the equalizer comes on down. The jungler is dead. The tree's been burned down. Destroy slightly on the wrong side. Targus lands a dredge line into the ultimate as well. Paris! Monster knockup. How much more can they get? Not a great pop blossom afterwards. Seiken struggling with that one. It is a 1-for-1. Destroy has found himself in a very odd position though. Kalist chunked out. Hit on the wrong end of an Electro Harpoon. Will throw down the W. The Electro beam will come on through Kalist. Still being burned down. Still chasing Destroy, who
Not
is
again, man.
in such
How
a
many
weird
times
space.
is this poor top laner gonna die to the roaming gank squad of Karmine
I'm
Corp?
not sure this is a roaming gang squad. He went this way. There was a 5v5.
This one might have been of his own creation, but he still died away from his team somewhere in the deep, dark depths of the Karmine Corp side of the map. You can see that Wildcats, they were kind of forced into trying to go towards this Baron bait to stop Karmine Corp just setting up shop in Vault River and potentially engaging onto them. But they don't have the Baron damage right now, and they don't have the damage to last out the fight after their ultimates have been used. Equalizer's gone at this point. Paranoia and the Alistair ultimate are gone at this point. Paris is the only front line this team has. If you can't win the fight by the time his ultimate is over, Karmine Corp, particularly with this Zeri, will just run you down. And that's exactly what happens here. They end up losing a couple of kills. They don't get that Baron. They give up another Dragon as well. Karmine Corp, they're playing out this mid game very well so far. They're forcing Wildcats into difficult decisions.
And honestly, this is a bit of a change from how it was in groups where they would get big leads early on, but then they would kind of be a bit greedy, I think was the way the desk was fraying, and I tend to agree. In the mid game, they'd give up some of those advantages. They would push it a little bit too far and get their hand caught in the cookie jar. This time, they've been the ones doing the catching, honestly, all things said and done. That 1-5 Rumble, certainly a bit of a turnaround from the laning phase, and now Baron might be a potential for Karmine Corp.
Thing is, Baron is not going to fall as quickly as a Dragon. So you can't exactly burst that one down from outside of Wildcat's knowledge. So Bout, he has himself Flash. Kufta has himself Flash. Destroy has himself Flash. You're not going to be able to as quickly engage either. Very interested to see how Karmine Corp want to force fights. It feels like they've been winning the last few, but with the summoners and ultimates available, they need to be careful about how they choose these kind of fights. That's a bolt onto Gliss.
He's taken very, very low, but we'll get over the wall. But there goes Bao following after, and the fear landed anyway. It's 1,000 gold shutdown going into Bao's pocket. You've lost your critical carry. They're down. Baron is up. You can maybe look to get even more here.
This is so dangerous. Paris has Flash. He can force a fight very, very easily. I think that Wildcats, they're making the right decision. The damage is gone from Karmine Corp. They need to be very careful of a peel off.
Really, really do. Seiken just not there yet in terms of damage rate. Triple frontline and a Nico that need to try and stop this Baron going down. Destroy, gets onto Synchron, trying to prevent getting anywhere near this Baron pit. It's a big call of the Forge God. Paris doing his best to frontline, trying to keep them all low. The equalizer at the back isn't the best I've ever seen. Destroy still trying to do some work. Seiken gets the pop block. There goes Bao. They get so many. Oh my god, they're doing it anyway. Who needs to make it happen? The Kalista is dead. Sorry, the Kaiser is dead. The Jace is dead. The whole of Wildcards outside of the Rumble for once are dead. And now Baron is Karmine Corp's.
No AD carry, no problem. The Wildcats are not quick enough to turn. They can't force the fight, and they end up getting absolutely shredded by Karmine Corp. The mid game from them in this game, in the first game in this series, is so much cleaner than what we saw in groups. And need we remind you, this could be the Wildcats' first loss of the tournament. They went 6-0 in groups. They have looked so dominant. Even with some 1 or 2 awkward games, they've closed out everything which was put in front of them. Karmine Corp, they had the opposite, but they're running away with this first game. As we said, it was largely about the Wildcats looking for the turn. There's no Zeri at this point, which is the big DPS from Karmine Corp. But actually, they never get to the point where they can start running onto Karmine Corp themselves. Bao doesn't have himself good position, doesn't have mana, doesn't have any HP after tanking the Baron. They take him down and they realize, now we've got the DPS in our advantage again.
Baron does a lot of work there for Karmine Corp, dragging down Bao's health bar, so Seiken can pop him with the Blossom. Now they get Baron, now they get to shove, and all that standing gold begins to go into their pockets, and they have the substantial gold lead they've been denied earlier on in the game. Maybe they'll even get towards an inhibitor turret. The rest of Wildcats just aren't here. You can see Destroy is actually shoving up in the tier 2, saying we're not going to be able to defend this. We want to get as much gold on the rest of the map as they can. Inhibitor just goes down for free.
The worry is now, though, you've even got a Hex Drinker on top of Kalist. How are you going to take down that Zeri again? I really don't think you're going to be able to catch them out. Ferret did a good job catching out that Zeri in the mid lane, but that's the only real impact he's had in this game outside of some minute value from those ultimates coming through. They're heading back towards this dragon. It will be a soul for the front line that is already very much being struggled to die. To be taken down by the Wildcats, that would feel like a real killer blow for the Wildcats.
Blue soul for the blue wall. Well, at least teal. Doing their very best to get a hold of that Ocean Soul and make themselves even hard to get through when you've got triple front line and the Zeri behind it. You know what? You need some sustain on top of all of that.
I would have thought the blue wall would be the ocean defenses. Isn't that meant to be the sea wall? Isn't that a thing?
Maybe. I was thinking also Hex Soul is strictly more blue.
It is, in fact, more blue than the other. Oh, well...
But then again, ocean kind of associated with the colour blue, you know?
Whatever. You know what? I'm not going to sit here talking color theory about various.
It was supposed to be a
souls.
nice reference, and instead it's become a color theory discussion.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Sam. That's great. Now maybe you could save that for the next. You don't workshop it. Workshop it. We'll get back for next.
Well, we've got 5 minutes between games.
Funnily enough, Wildcats are going to have to do some workshopping as well in this game and the next one too. They do have a powerful Kai'Sa still. Kai'Sa is still in this game. Sadly, Kufta, for all of his strength in groups and of course on this Jace, which he's undefeated in this tournament so far, has not really had the impact he wants to. The Shock Blast not really landing the damage that they need to, and with the Ocean Soul built up, all of that minute damage without even the Serylda's completed just yet is going to get shrugged off.
Fully stacked Dark Seal and a Death Cap Forsaken, now a real threat in terms of damage front, as well as Bao on the wrong end of an Ultra Shock Laser. Baron is wearing off shortly.
Look at Kabashard, he's angling for an engage. There's potential here for him to put that ultimate across the entire team. Look for a dive with a Markheil.
See where Destroy and Ferret are positioning as well, looking to pounce on a flank themselves. There goes the blue trinket to spot out where Bao is. There's the Equalizer down as well. Now that the Baron has run out of time, so they'll clear out the way to prevent the easy shove onto the inhibitor turret.
It's okay, so Baron buff being utilized here by Karmine Corp to at least try and something with this wave, but see Destroy ultimate down now. If you didn't have that Equalizer before, which could kill that front line, I really do struggle to see how you can defend it now without that big red carpet. Wildcats, they are really holding on for dear life here.
They are about just out of mana, can't keep out. Hope was hitting Kalist pretty successfully as Kofta follows up where his AD carry started, but that just brings the Zeri low. It's not in threat and the inhibitor still falls.
Whenever I see someone get low on a Baron push or just in any big push in general, of course it's worn off by this point, I always have to wonder, is there going to be a teleport coming in? Paris is caught.
There is indeed Paris. He's going to try and stay alive best again. Bao is doing his best as well to throw out some damage, but the Call of the Forge God comes on down. But it might be the call to end the game. As over, Bao goes out of the way of the pop bottom of Kalist, left in no man's land. Does finally fall. Bao desperately low, but he's still alive now, taken in the backside, having been baited and outsmarted by Bao. Ferret is alive.
What's happening with the AD carries? Bao needs to live if he can help it. Synchro is trying to chase him down. Looks like he gets away. He has another W.
Wait for it. Can they? Oh my god, misses the W and they're still on vision. Can Syncroft get close enough? There's an ultimate available from Syncroft. He can look to just kill him off with the ult. Trying to heal up now is Bao. Must avoid the route. Teleport's coming on through. There's just no way, Bao. Surely not. He's got to be dead to rights. Kabashard is here. They're missing out the rupture from the volcano, and it will be a shutdown going the way of Syncroft. Valiant effort by Bao, just not enough.
Not enough. Chase down on the extended retreat. Wildcats save their base, though. They have lost a couple of inhibitors, but they stop Karmine Corp ending the game, which is a little bit concerning. Ferret gets the CC onto Kalist once again, which then means that the Kai'Sa can zoom right through, finish off that kill. That got very close. Bao almost died to the Zeri anyway, but still, Wildcats, you can see maybe how they can play out the next few fights. Separate out Kalist. Look exactly what's happening in this clip. They think they have themselves the pick onto Paris beyond this point, but look at Ferret. He's struggled to really have impact, but Shock Blast onto him. A little bit of CC, and that enables Bao to run through as well. Now, it turns out Kalist still has an absolute truckload of damage. It almost takes down the AD carry, but if that happens a little cleaner in another fight, I don't even care if Karmine Corp are another couple of thousand gold ahead. That could be a game-ending fight.
Smite nearly claimed Bao's life at the beginning of that, but Red Buff feeling in a cleanse keeps him just about running in time. Did eventually fall, but now Baron's alive in 10 seconds, and we might be in for round 5 or whatever it is this game.
It's round something high. Kofta has himself the flash. I don't think they're going to force it right now. They are indeed. Kofta not wanting to get CC chained into death. That is an ultimate down from Kabashard. It is his rank 3 ultimate, which will give him a good cooldown on it. You can see the Karmine Corp. They're trying to angle towards this Baron. Maybe get a pick in the ensuing fight.
Baron started upgrades in Forsaken and Kalist, courtesy of Kabashard's on. Baron down to half. Saken on the flank, looking to get in, but it is just the clone right now. Baron still being held. They're trying to stop Paris getting in. Paranoia is called. The lights are off. He's been a glorified light switch. In some ways, he's going on to Saken. Knows it's him. Will not get as much value as I hope. The equalizer is decent, but Ferret will spell shield the attempted engage. Paris gets to the backside. Power on the back of the wall, trying to find some time. Saken! Bomb Blossom murders him with a good flash afterwards. Destroy down, and Karmine Corp will surely break the undefeated streak. Will surely show why they are a team to fear here at the EMEA Masters. 3-time champions looking to continue their streak. They have never lost when they have turned up here. Kalist will face check Ferret, but I just don't know how much more they get.
The blue wall stands strong in game 1. The dive combo, we asked it to be clean, and all it was muddied up with Saken just destroying Bao.
Over the wall they go. There he gets another kill. Kalist, this superstar, this rookie AD carry, showing exactly why everyone has begun to sing his praises. Cabochard will execute to the fountain to add a little bit of style. 50 gold, and Karmine Corp find themselves a game 1 victory.
I mean, the fountain got 600 gold from that one. Shutdown claimed by the base, but it is not to be for the Wildcats. They will not continue that undefeated run. The only undefeated team now in EMEA Masters is Matchco on the other side of the bracket, waiting in those semi-finals as well. What a story that's been to the Wildcats. Considered favorites here. I consider them favorites. They got really blown out in the mid-game, which we had a lot of worries about from Karmine Corp, but we know something about this team. Regardless of how good they look at the start of the tournament, thinking particularly about their last title as well, the EU Masters, they came from players. They looked shaky at the start of that tournament. They grew as that went on, and it really felt like they built up to a really formidable team. They could be doing exactly the same here.
We're talking about that now. You know, this is EMEA Masters now. Karmine Corp coming back. They have done it again. Remember that last time when they had to come from play-ins and still won it? They had a rough group. So they went 3-3. They had to go to a tiebreaker, and it was looking pretty rough for a while there. And then in this game, that mid-game, as you're saying, was really, really good. I think particularly the catches on to destroy were very well managed, despite the fact they were losing some of those structures early.
I think Wildcats now have to walk away from this game and say, okay, there were some issues in that draft. I really think that Ferret looked a little out of sorts playing that Nocturne. Des recognized it. We saw it in game as well. There were some brief moments where the combo came online, but you need something that's easier to play in a 5v5 if you're going to play for 5v5s. I think that Wildcats couldn't play slow enough. I think Karmine Corp forced the fights to be very fast. They kept throwing Maokai ults at them to engage, so they couldn't get that second Shock Blast or the second Void Seeker as well from the side of that Kai'Sa. And that was really good understanding of Karmine Corp, which will lead them healthily into a game 2.
It is indeed. And Wildcats back to the drawing board just a little bit here. Karmine Corp play a slick mid-game and come up with a victory in game 1. Don't go anywhere though, guys, because we've got a hell of a lot more of this series to go. We'll see you after the break.